perhaps is to present yourself?
Cool to
Or
meet you.
can you present yourself, Patrice?
Yes. Hi, I'm Patrice Lupowski. I'm working for Orange, and I'm in charge of several topics around platforms like AI, Internet of Things, data. That's it.
Okay. And Rodolphe?
Hello, I'm Rodolphe Gélin. I'm working at SoftBank Robotics, and I'm in charge of innovation.
Nicolas?
Hello, my name is Nicolas Chiquet, CEO and co-founder of LifePlus, which is a startup working on technology for senior people.
Thank you very much. So each of you develop a lot of different solutions for helping elderly in their everyday life. And the first question is, how do you manage with this new technology for taking care of elderly people in the context of already existing very consistent human caregivers and caretakers and all the environment around the elderly?
For younger people, technology are used to simplify our lives with a lot of task automation, like, Alexa, can you order me some flowers for my wife, please? Our goal is to spend more time with our families and friends. But for senior people, it's very different. Time is not an issue, and medical studies show that in order to live longer and better, you need to keep a lot of physical, cognitive, and social activity. For that, technology cannot replace all. Sorry for my English. Seniors want to continue living as they used to, go for a walk, go for shopping, spend quality time with their families. But they are afraid to do that because of their medical issues. So our job is to reassure them by giving them some personalized prevention advices. To do that, we need to analyze a lot of data efficiently, and for that, AI is a good tool. For us, it's not technology first, but senior first. Since they are not as tech savvy as us, we build a solution in the form of an everyday object. It's a watch that gives time.
Thank you, Nicolas. Rodolphe, you develop some robots for elderly. Do you develop it for the elderly themselves, or for well-aging elderly, or fragile elderly, or for people around them? How do you manage with that?
Today, it's true that people are getting older and older, and we are facing a problem of loss of autonomy. Elderly people, either they go to in a special retirement house that are not so fun, or they stay at home, but they're alone, and sometimes it could be dangerous. So robots could be a way for them to be less alone and to be reassured, and their family to be reassured of what's going on, if they fail, if they have a trouble, so the robot can be here when there is nobody to help. And nobody else to help. And of course, the robot cannot replace today human assistance because it's not clever enough, in spite of progress of artificial intelligence. It's not dexterous enough. But anyway, you have human assistance maybe 1 hour a day at home for elderly people, but the rest of the day, people are alone. And having a robot, even if the robot does very, very simple things, is a presence, is a way to reassure people and to be sure that everything goes well. So for us, that's why we think the robot, of course, it's not an ethical way to assist people to provide a robot instead of human assistance, but when there are no human assistance, because it's very expensive to have human assistance all day long, the robot is a possible solution, and we see that for doctors, for caregivers, robot is now accepted as a possible solution.
Patrice, tell us, since you have now a large experience in many, many different places, to have really developed some technology in the homes, what is your experience return?
Well, globally, we consider that we have a mission to democratize all the possibilities that are existing thanks to digital technologies. So first of all, we're not seeing that as a specific topic. We're working a lot on something which is called accessibility. So globally, it is making all the possible things in order to help the old people, the elderly people, in order to be able to help the people who have some disabilities to get access to digital services. While we're doing that, not only we're trying to help them access the services, but we're also trying to see how technology can facilitate their daily lives. And which means, for instance, when we want to develop the way they're living at home, we're working with companies like Telegraphic, and we're going to, thanks to AI, try to determine whether people are going out or not, how they're living home, because we know that there are tangible benefits in keeping them home, and we're more and more using some AI techniques to power that, and we're also using robots. Not in that particular use case, but when we're working with our bots on the beam, on the UB robots, as it is called at Orange, we're not bringing robots to replace human. We're bringing them because we have an added opportunity to create some link between the people thanks to the robot.
That's a very important point, surely, to think that robots can, or either technology which are not. It's AI technology. It means there is a rupture of the way to be perceived by humans. So when you say that the robots will make a presence for people, how can you ensure in the reality of the everyday life of people that it will not make the people more and more isolated and really less and less isolated as you expect? How can you measure that what you develop has really make decreasing this feeling of isolation of people and the comfort of their everyday life?
Oh, it's to be honest, we are just beginning to this experiment, so it's difficult to say how we can measure. But when we designed our system, we did it with people who know the situation of elderly people. So we have okay, it's not techno-push solution, but really it comes from a requirement from the users and their neighbors and their family. And of course, there is a risk that people, especially because we develop humanoid people that are very cute, there is a risk that people are very attached to the robot and can become more and more isolated because their only friend becomes a robot. So it could be that's something that is sometimes asked to us. And first, this is a reason why our robots are not looking exactly as human beings, but they are looking like robots, so you cannot really think that they are human beings. But also, it's true that it really depends of it's a responsibility of the application developer. The robot is not completely free and completely autonomous. It is programmed by developers, and the developers have the responsibility to have in their application a kind of safety, security, ensuring that, okay, if you spend too much time with me as a robot, maybe it's not good, and maybe we should call your doctor, we should call our family. So there is you can have some kind of fuse of protection inside the programming of the robot to be sure that the robot prevent this kind of isolation. It's a part of the responsibility of the robot programmer, to be sure that the person doesn't spend too much time with the robot and forget the family.
Okay, and Nicolas, since you developed a technology which help people to join themselves around the elderly, how can you measure how it is accepted not only by the elderly but all the band around them?
Like Rodolphe, we have not a lot of experience in the experimentation, so we don't have key figures on this part. But the return of people, the caregivers, is that it helps them being comfortable with the fact that senior people are alone at home because they have some information about that. I will say another thing that Rodolphe told is that we build a solution and we have a different type of function inside, but we have also a very robust part of the system for alerts, SOS, fault detections, where you don't put AI. And it's very important that it works all the time.
And Patrice, you insisted a lot on the fact that your technology must be not only devoted for aged people, but also for everybody in thinking before it happens, that it can be used like that.
Yeah, it's the case when we're working on the AI power assistant Jingo at Orange. We think about Jingo being something that can be used by everybody, not only by the elderly people. And it's the same thing when we've started to work on the telepresence robots. We were not thinking of dedicating that to a specific use, and we found out that it was very useful for small businesses who have different sites, but very useful also for people who are in the hospital. And thanks to that, we have been able to bring some kids in Rennes, some kids that were attending some shows, theater shows in Festival d'Avignon, thanks to that kind of solution. So this shows that when you've made the things possible with the technology, you can then use that in several use cases. But more important than that, we love robots, we love AI, etc. But we're a 155,000 people company, so we have a lot of things which are basically human-powered. This is why our CEO is always insisting on the human inside touch of the things we're doing. So we consider that we have to enhance and maybe to amplify what is being done by human beings. By using that, it's not to replace them. It's really to add some features and some capabilities thanks to digital technologies.
And have you an idea? Have you already some plan to predict what will change with your technology and how your technology could evolve in the global context of AR for everybody?
For us, the technology must disappear to be good for senior people. They don't need to do anything. And there is also, like we told earlier, a lot of simplification needed for caregivers that actually have a lot of things to do in order to take care about their loved ones. So simplification.
And is it a good thing to simplify? Because, for example, it's very common that whole people really want to make all the processing to make the coffee, and it doesn't want to have an automatic coffee machine. It's not AI, but they commonly refuse that because they want to do it because it is their
because
culture.
they want to have good coffee.
Yeah, it's not simplification for the senior people, but for the caregivers that take a lot of time with senior people, and I think they must take time with senior and not doing administrative stuff.
Yes, for the evolution, of course, we're thinking to a technical evolution, and the robot will be able to do more and more things like lunch and so on. But also, the evolution we expect is the way that this robot will be accepted as a really, I'd say, almost medical tool, and that can be, reimbursed by social security, by insurance, and we need to have a complete ecosystem coming on the robot, and we will not, as a robot manufacturer, we are not specialists of developing application for elderly people, so we need to have companies, partners developing this, and then insurance paying for this and so on, and all this system, when this global economic system will be set, then we can hope to have this deployment of robots. And as you said, of course, what we're targeting is not elderly people market is the first market, but we are looking for the huge market of B2C. But today, these people, elderly people, really need a robot. But when you have an healthy young family, they don't really need a robot because they can do everything a robot can do. But in the future, the more the robot will be able to do, maybe we can reach the performances that a whole family will wait from a robot.
I think that if we are speaking a little bit about the long term, I think that because of the movies like Her, etc., everybody's expecting to see either robots having real emotions or AI-powered OSs being able to liaise with human and develop some kind of feelings. Even if we're seeing technology improving, I'm not sure that this is the vision we have, that we would see some kind of real relation occurring between human and AI-powered interfaces, assistants or robots. I think that at some point we may discover that those machines will only be able to mimic what the people are themselves doing, and I think that what can be done that now by looking yourself in the mirror or watching your own video is probably too much centered on your own person to be driving a vision on the way society is going to evolve. So My preference is to consider that we may find in the long term that those technologies are interesting, but are not replacing another way we should foster and define our society. Thinking only, for instance, about how the people are behaving in some other countries. When you think about the relation that in China people are having with the older people, etc., maybe it will challenge the way we're conceiving it in Europe.
Yes, to continue with that, it's a fact that when the elderly people have the feeling to be isolated, the feeling, it's not a reality feeling, they are fragile and they die 7 times more, but it has been remarked that it's really depending of the culture. So, Patrice and Rodolphe, you work with different cultures. Did you see different kind of technologies to be accepted, to be understood, to be interpreted, and to evolve?
Yes, we have the chance, for instance, to cover 29 countries, mainly in Europe and Africa, where we see strong differences, not only in the way technology is perceived, but in the way people are behaving. So thanks to that, there's not a universal way of perceiving that. And what is true, and it's true almost everywhere, is when you're speaking about some very important diseases, isolation is something that must be absolutely prevented. So if we find ways, whether it's using technology, human, etc., if we find all the good ways to prevent people from being isolated, we're helping them. And so we have good chances, regardless of the topic we're speaking about, to enhance the life of the people thanks to that.
Yeah, about isolation, I was told by Xavier Emmanuel Elie, who is the founder of the SAMU Social, something very strange, because he told me it's good that your robot is humanoid, with a humanoid shape, because it changes the landscape of the elderly people. When elderly people is at home alone, is surrounded by objects. And after a while, he thinks that is an object in the middle of other objects. Having a humanoid shapes moving around will completely change their mind. They have the idea of not being alone. It's very strange, but he is convinced that it's a way to, in a way, trick the isolation feeling only by having this kind of silhouette, humanoid shape going around the person.
Yeah, but can you continue with that? Because it's this first feeling, is it a mental state that will push people to go more and more to human, or on the contrary, to stay more and more with the robots? What is your first experiment for that?
It's really difficult because we don't have this long-term experience. We're trying these days to have a robot living 7 days a row with a elderly person, and it's pretty difficult. From a technical point of view, it's difficult. Yeah. And so it's difficult to say, okay, if on the long term, what will be the feedback and the benefits. But today we have many signals indicating that it's worth to keep on trying.
I think it's not the first time in history that we're seeing that we're giving personality to objects. I don't know. I'm not asking people to raise their hands, but how many of you have given a specific nickname to their car or to their racket when they're playing tennis, etc.? It's pretty common. So now that we're seeing objects which are connected, which have a little bit of capabilities thanks to AI, etc., it's pretty common to consider that they belong a little bit to humanity, even if they have a kind of soul, because we are projecting that. It's a part of ourselves, but it's no more than something that we've experienced by the past already.
So we can conclude that you are very optimistic.
Yes, long term. My only prediction is that I will be 1 year older next year. That's my only prediction.